we're a business. I have not been called to go out and go to other countries and help fight human trafficking. But I do believe that our gifting as a business people is to support the people who have the talents to go to those countries.
Welcome back to the show. I am your host, Remington Ramsey, and we've got a great guest today, a very special guest, near and dear to my heart, someone with a huge heart, Mr. Duane Hixon, the CEO and co-founder of Into Publishing. Duane, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Remington. Really, it's an honor to be with you and your listeners today. Appreciate it. Appreciate the invite.
You know, I say big heart, and I've got plenty of Duane stories. I just think about, we were talking, I don't even know why it came up in the pre-show, but Taylor Swift, and you had closed a message in a leadership meeting with a video of you with your daughter at a Taylor Swift concert, just going bananas. But as you were giving that wrap-up message, you were in tears, you know, and because the whole thing was about just how much you love your daughter. And with three daughters of my own, man, we've got a lot in common there. And what we're going to talk about today is a really tough subject because obviously because of the subject matter itself. But for me, when I think about things specifically that could happen to me or could impact me, or specifically my kids, that's a hard thing to listen to. And I hope the listeners, knowing what we're going to talk about today, don't shy away and don't not listen. I hope they engage, and at least it gets them thinking about, potentially being the hands and feet, if you will, salt of the earth people. So that's my little disclaimer for what we're going to get into. But Into Publishing, let's start from the beginning to figure out how we even got here to have the impact that you have had in human trafficking. But you got to start from the beginning with a little idea that you had with selling magazines. So tell me how that whole thing started.
Yeah, man, this was back in 2004, and quite honestly, it was just, I was in a season of life. I was, had been married now for a few years at that point, and really had a dream of, I thought I could be a kicker in the NFL. And so I had been training, and I made an arena football league team. And my first game, I missed all three of my kicks. So I'm with the team through the preseason. Tupelo Fire Ants, for anybody who ever went to a Tupelo Fire Ant game, but there for the preseason, there for our first game. And first game, so on Saturday night, I missed all three of my field goal attempts. Monday morning, I go in for my workout. Coach calls me in and says, "Hey, we're moving in a new direction with our kicker." So I was done. I told my wife, "Hey, don't worry, like something else is going to happen. I'll get picked up somewhere. Kickers get released all the time, but no one ever called Remington. When you go 0 for 3, it's that for me, at least I found at that point, the phone wasn't ringing. Maybe it's time and wise for me to move on from that dream that I had in life at that point. So unemployed, the dream I had wasn't going to progress as I had hoped. So I started looking for other things to do, and always enjoyed sales. As I'm looking around, looking at different options and looking at business opportunities and franchise opportunities. The idea of neighborhood newsletters was one that wasn't my idea, but I saw it happening. I know you live in Indianapolis. I saw a neighborhood newsletter company in Indianapolis. I saw 2 in Atlanta. I saw 1 down in Austin, Texas, but no one was doing it in our town of Wilmington, North Carolina. Mm-hmm. And so I called my friend, Earl, who, we both know. I said, "Earl, go start this neighborhood newsletter business. We've talked about being in business together. What do you think about doing neighborhood newsletters?" He was in St. Louis, and no one was doing it in St. Louis either. He said, "Absolutely, I'm in." So we just kind of got started, and he started in St. Louis with a couple of magazines. I started in Wilmington with a couple of magazines, and the idea was terrible in the beginning. Our magazines were terrible in the beginning. It took 2 years to get a product that looked good, that people liked and enjoyed, but it did take off, fortunately.
Well, I do want to pause you there because I tell people often when we're training new franchisees and everyone listening to this knows about Real Producers as the magazine and the events. But I am very thankful for Into, not only because you took a chance on me when we first created that product, but because you had got all the kinks out when you created yours. And so you made the mistake of sending it to the wrong people, printing ads upside down, black and white, whatever those mistakes were, for the most part, got those kinks out. Yeah. so that we could seamlessly grow this company. So thank you for that. But then also thank you for taking a chance on a kid with an idea. Back in 2015, you guys were approaching 100 mil. 2014 and then 2015 and then finally eclipsed that, and that's when we came to you, or I came to Duane and Earl, which I think you guys just on the names alone could have your own hillbilly podcast. I mean, Earl would do the hillbilly part.
Thank you. Thank you for not grouping me in with that.
But obviously figured it out, right? In the first early years, struggled to make ends meet, but the dream. What's fascinating is you hear a lot of people with a dream that is broken. I mean, most of us, our dreams are broken. But I wonder now, on the back half of what you've accomplished, where a $150 million company year in and year out, and now you're acquiring other companies, and I don't even know what you got your hands into, Duane, but obviously super successful. Do you ever look back and wish you were still an NFL kicker?
No, I don't wish at all. Yeah, I don't wish at all. You know, it is crazy. I think that your life truly is, it's so many people work hard, but you got to have some breaks and things that you can't even plan for that go your way. And certainly I can look back at the start of N2 and just see some luck and fortune that was on our side that we had no part in. And, but I don't miss it. I don't miss it. I love what I'm doing. I'm excited. Like you said, there are a lot of us that have these broken dreams, and you wonder how can you move on when something you would aspired for isn't going to become your reality. And then all of a sudden things happen later in life that you didn't even think about. But you couldn't be happier. Couldn't have worked out any better. So yeah, I feel very fortunate that that's been the case.
You did something that I think a lot of people struggle to do, is you pivoted really quickly. We didn't really stew in the pain of getting cut from the team and how many months you went around looking or trying to create your own business. But I imagine it wasn't the next day I figured this out, I'm good to go. What would you tell someone who, maybe if I'm listening to this, I got into real estate because I had to, because all of my other options were gone. Right. And so I'm not realizing my potential in real estate because I'm not embracing it, because I still have the dream of being the drummer in the band, or I still had that dream. Like, what would you say to that person that, had the same situation where their dreams were cut in half?
Well, man, I love your audience, because, and it's a great question for this, your audience, you're the top realtors. That's who this goes to. And I think, I enjoy the best really of any industry, of anything. So I wouldn't watch a ping pong match on TV per se, but when the Olympics are on and you see the top ping pong players in the world,
yeah,
it's fascinating. Like you're watching them, like, I didn't know that's how ping pong could be played, or diving. And I think even with real estate, when I watch like the top realtors and what they do, there's so much respect and so much that I've learned from even top realtors. And I think about, two things in particular. One, like, how do they build culture? You see today, real estate is so different today than when it was even 20 years ago when we started in too. But now teams are such a big part of this. And you're seeing the teams grow. And how does someone grow that culture, to build that team unity that other realtors want to be a part of? Or even like the brokerage themselves. How do the brokers attract the right realtors and keep the right realtors there? I'm always fascinated by that. And then two, I love how the top realtors, like, product knowledge. Like, they know their stuff. In fact, it's funny, this morning I was getting ready. We have a little division in N2 that we started about 18 months ago. So I was getting thoughts together for our sales meeting in a few days. And I pulled a clip from, do you ever watch Lux Listings?
I don't think so.
You ever seen that? No? It's I don't know if it's on Prime or Netflix, but it's, some realtors down in Australia. You got to watch it, Remington. You'd love it, man. It's
right.
Totally your style. The guys are always wearing fancy watches. They got the full suit. They're good looking dudes like you. Like, you would love Lux Listings. But it's so they're talking to this one guy who's built this great, team in Sydney, and he's talking about how important product knowledge. Like, listen, if you're going to be on, with the I think it's the Rubenstein group, if you're going to be part of our group, you've got to know product knowledge. And he's walking through the house with the new realtor who he's going to bring on his team, and the music's playing, And he's acting like he's just the buyer. He wants to see her show the house. So he walks into the living room. He's like, wow, so what's our orientation here? She's like, okay, that's north and that would be east looking that way. He's like, good. They walk into the kitchen and he's like, oh, it's a beautiful kitchen. What is that countertop made out of? And she goes, I actually don't know. And the music just stops, right? The beat that was going in the back just stops, and he just stops and he looks at her. And he's like, he's like, no. We've got to know our product.
Yeah.
Right. If you're going to be a top realtor, you've got to know your product.
It sounds very Glengarry, Glen Ross, or like modern day, hardcore sales. Put the coffee down, kind of.
That's it, man. Yeah. It's Andy Elliott. Have you heard of Andy Elliott? You've seen this guy yet?
No, man. I'm writing all this down though. I got to do a lot of research. Apparently.
So it's that whole thing. The same part of it. Andy Elliott is one of the guys on our sales team. He loves Andy Elliott, and it's this guy. He's just like, he's pretty intense. I don't know how politically correct he is, but he sent me a few of his clips, and they're pretty entertaining. But he gets this young kid up. He's doing a seminar. He gets this young kid up there, and he says, tell me your pitch. And the young gentleman is like, well, so I'm here kind of sort of today to explain pest control, and here's what I'm doing in the neighborhood. And he goes, stop. And he writes on the board, I'm kind of sort of here today. Is this your script?
Oh, okay. I have seen this guy. Yeah.
Is this your script? He's like, come on. He's like, how old are you? 23. He's like, listen, you could make $500,000 a year if you so desire. But you know what, people? He does not so desire. He does not know his script. But it's like this idea of just like that hard.
I would love to see you do this, Duane, at an N2 conference. Just bring up one at a time and just grill them and say, you do not desire.
Let's hear the close. But I tell you, man, when you look at the top real estate agents, it's just that they understand that it's a relationship business, but they also are on their game. They know their product. Yeah. And I love that and try to integrate that into our sales team. In fact, we lost a member of our team last week because we had we had a lady, a product who leads a few products. She was training some people on these products. At the end, she gave like a pop quiz. Let's see how you did. And a guy on our team failed the quiz. And he was like, afterwards, his leader called him, was talking to him. Hey, listen, when you failed the quiz, what's going on? He's like, that's not fair. I didn't know you were going to quiz us when it was over. It's like, it's product knowledge. If you're going to be in sales, you should want to know these things.
Yeah, you should want to know
the product if you don't know everything about it. Yeah. And so in that conversation, it became clear to him he was at the wrong spot, that the expectations here were that you have to really understand your product. And if you're not going to make it here. Yeah. So, it's that commitment is going to be on their game. And we kind of got off track there a little bit. And I can't remember first question was now.
Well, what you're describing, I mean, you're talking about realtors that are one of the things that we talk about with the distribution list when we're talking to potential partners is just their desire to be better, their desire to be great, their desire to be in its friendly competition, right? And so for the longest time, real estate was actually pretty cutthroat, but with outside entities like coming in and threatening the job of realtor, for the longest time, people thought Uber was going to threaten the job of the realtor, but like Realtor.com, Zillow, all these other things. And on a recent episode, we talked about AI and all these things that are coming in. And the top realtors are the ones that think, how can this help my business versus how is this going to destroy my business? And I think what you're tapping into, you talked about the Olympics. I think Bill Murray tweeted a couple of years ago during the Olympics. It was such a good tweet. He goes, every single Olympic event should have a normal person to show the scale of these athletes. That's right. To bring perspective. But I think like if we apply that to what you're saying, the Olympics, I mean, the top 500 realtors, top 300, top 1% of realtors, if I'm not on that list, is my desire to be on that list or at least to be the best I can be at my craft? Or am I totally cool just being that normal guy running next to Usain Bolt? That's good stuff, Duane. And but into publishing the backing, when you first started it, the neighborhood newsletter, the goal was to grow a company around the affluent neighborhoods and businesses who want to appeal and grow their business around the affluent. And when we created Real Producers back in 2015, which at the time was Indie Top Producer, lost that battle.
Remember that?
But I'm so glad we did, man. Real Producers is the brand, man. It was destined to be Real Producers. But created in 2015, and honestly, I think one of the big reasons it took off as a complementary product is because of how similar it was to the initial product, where you're taking a grouping of people and you're going to the top echelon of those people. And even in Real Producers, I was talking to someone this morning, even if I'm not in that top tier of realtor and I'm a business looking to appeal to all realtors, what people need to realize is that the realtors who are not on the list still go to these realtors to figure out who they want to use in business, to figure out how to run their business, and to listen to this podcast to get better so that they can soon be said realtors. So, yeah, we are getting a little off topic, but obviously you and I both get very passionate about product and bettering our craft. So thank you for digging into that.
Well, and you're right. I think to circle back, your question was, how does someone brand new get developed and get started? So if a dream ended, and I'll just say for us, it was several years before any real success. But in the beginning, you're just gaining knowledge. Like I said, you're learning, you're listening, you're gleaning from the best. And it can be in real estate, can be in any industry. How are successful people operating? And starting to put those things into practice as you figure out your trade, figure out your script, figure out your process. Start to, you finally get a good relationship, and how do you make sure you take care of that relationship? So very doable. I think for us, at least, my advice would be like, it will take several years, I think, to get good at your craft, and just to be patient with that.
Yeah, no doubt. I've got so many questions around that, growing a business, because it's not just realtors that listen to this, but for the time today, I do want to get into our topic. And once you reach a certain level of success, you have eyes on you. And what you do with your money is important, not only to the people within the organization, people outside the organization. People are just looking at you to be the man that you want to be. I mean, those are important decisions. And so when you guys hit a certain level, there came a time where I'm sure everyone and their brother was approaching you for the extra cash that you got for charities and organizations. And you guys had landed on human trafficking as where you wanted to put the bulk of your money. And I'm curious, before we dig into why, how do you determine what to do with charitable contributions when there's so many options out there?
We really had to go through a process to dial in, like you said, and maybe we'll get to why human trafficking. Okay, that's one decision. Where do you want to support? Where do you want to give money? And then two becomes, now in that industry, in that field, which organizations will you give the money to? And in the fight against human trafficking, there are a lot of organizations out there with a lot of people with great hearts who want to help, want to be part of the solution. However, just like in any business, whether it's real estate, whether it's publishing, there are people who are good at their craft, and there are people who are very nice people, but their ability to run the business like a business, it just isn't crafted yet. It hasn't been dialed in. And so when we decided, okay, we want to make a big dent on human trafficking, we then had to go through, okay, well, there's hundreds of organizations now. We should give a little bit of money to hundreds of organizations. And so what we did is we really went through the whole process of looking at, gosh, I bet you our team vetted close to 150 different organizations.
Wow.
That fight human trafficking. And we came with an initial list of 30. So the first year of our decision to really fight human trafficking, we gave to 30 organizations in varying amounts. And in that year, we got a chance to really work with them, understand them more. And then we dialed that list back to 10. And then over the following year, we learned some more about those 10 organizations. And I think now we only have 4 organizations that we support. So all of our money goes to the 4 that we believe are having the largest impact for the dollars that they receive.
Can I pause you for a second? I want to know one of the big fears I think people have. I don't know where this fear came from, because is putting your money somewhere and not truly understanding where that money's going, and just thinking that the organization is pocketing or putting it in places that they're not actually telling you that they're putting it. And this has been, one of the biggest objections. Now, I think people take that too far and then just decide not to give money. And I don't think that's serving anyone as well. I think the better thing to do is to do the research and figure out people you trust and trust that money will be put to good use. But did you experience that when you were in the number, when you had 30 organizations? Could you just tell like they're not doing what they say they're doing with our money?
I don't know that we found people who were not doing with their money what they said they would do, but in the nonprofit world, and I might get this wrong, I believe it's called a 990. I think it's the form that nonprofits have to supply that talk about the money they raise.
Percentages. Yeah.
Where does that money go? So you can kind of look and go, okay, they raised $100 and $5 went here, $50 went here. And so you can kind of start to evaluate, all right, what is their goal and how much of the money is supporting staff and people and how much of it is actually getting implemented into work, how much of it is going towards expense trips and dinners out, all the sorts of things. You kind of take a look at that stuff. And that's one piece that we looked at with all those organizations. We would look at those forms and go through, okay, and that was a starting point. But you really, it's like any business, it just comes down to the leadership, the ideas, the beliefs, the fundamentals, and how wise are they with the money that is given. And what they're, I found most of these people were good people that had a passion for it, but some were just really dialed in as operators. And they were getting stuff done. You could see the impact they were having. It's hard to look at numbers, but you need to look at numbers and the impact that's being had and some of the stories behind where the money goes. And we just kept finding over and over that there were a few organizations that continually rose above the others as far as that impact. Yeah. So now we've decided today to funnel most of our money towards those groups.
All right. So then my question is, why human trafficking? And it's kind of a silly question because obviously we could all decide to put our money there and it would be a great thing. But the truth of the matter is we don't. And some of us decide that we're more passionate about cancer research, which is good because we need more people passionate about that. But you guys decided, hey, we're going to put the bulk, if not all of our money into this. What got you to that point where you got so passionate about fighting this terrible thing?
Yeah, there's 1,000 great organizations to support, great causes to support. I don't know why this is. I don't know why we as people have something inside of us that breaks more towards something than it does something else. So again, when there's thousands of organizations that support, whether it's Wounded Warrior, cancer research, there's education in schools. And so there's so many great things that people are doing. But I remember years ago when I first realized what human trafficking was and how it was a real thing, and slavery was still in our world today, not only in our world, but at a higher level than it's been before. Something in my heart broke more for that than it did the others. And I don't know why. I think it was inside me. I'm wired that way. You mentioned at the start of the podcast, I was crying when I was sharing a story about my daughter. I've got 4 kids. And thanks for making me look like a softie, man, right out of the gate.
I'm making you look human, Duane.
Okay. But it's sometimes you're just talking and something comes up and there is just more of an emotion. It's just more real. And your heart is broken towards that cause. And for whatever reason, for my wife and I, when we found, started learning more about human trafficking, that was like our passion. That was it. It was like, look, that is, we can help do something about this. And so we just decided that, as you said, as N2 started to become successful, lots of people came looking for money. And we didn't really have a cause. We didn't have a strategy at that point on what to do with our money. So we always felt a little obligated. We've got some money we do want to give. Okay, we'll give some here, we'll give some here, we'll give some here. But it was very haphazardly. There's no strategy. So we decided, look, let's pick one cause. And we came to human trafficking. Let's fight human trafficking. Can we see human trafficking come to, I don't know that it'll ever come to a complete end, but can we see it come close to an end in our lifetime? Can we partner with organizations who are out doing the work? We're a business. I've not been called to go out and, go to other countries and help fight human trafficking. But I do believe that, our gifting as a business people is to support the people who have the talents to go to those countries. So, our heart was broken for human trafficking more so at Remington than it was other causes. Right or wrong, I'm not sure exactly why, but for both my wife and I, we decided that's the cause. Let's get behind that.
Do you want to share briefly, just so we hear human trafficking, and I think our mind goes in a couple different directions. But one of the ones that we've been fighting, that we have gotten more update and stories on, is the fishing, the kids in fishing trade,
Mm.
which was the first time I had ever heard about that and how brutal that was. Do you want to share a little bit about what that one is?
Yeah, so that was, I think you're talking about Lake Volta in Ghana.
Yeah,
And it's a part of the world where, um, yeah, a lot of young kids are taken from family members, or, they're taken from villages. They're brought to this lake in Ghana, and they're forced to work the boats. And so when the fishermen are out on the boats, if a line gets stuck on logs, debris down below, they'll send the kids down to go free those hooks. And I mean, it's a terrible life, right? First of all, they're taken from, where they were, these kids
families. Yeah,
belong, to go work the boats. Many of them can't swim. Many of them drown trying to free hooks from the debris down below. And so one of the organizations that we partner with was aware of this and has begun working with the local government to change the laws and work with the government. So this group doesn't just go in and raid the place and like steal kids back, and try to find out where they go. They're working with the government and their police to say, look, this is wrong.
yeah,
This shouldn't be happening, and bringing awareness to it, and then going with the police, and then going to these boats that have children working them. And really, in the last several years, we're seeing a lot of change in that region, where now the people who run these fishing operations realize that they have children illegally on their boat. There's a good chance they're going to be found out, and there's going to be consequences for that there weren't years ago. And so now
yeah.
it's just not worth it. And so now you're seeing a decrease in slavery of these children on these fishing boats.
Yeah, and
Another
that's one of the.
story, it's similar, right? It's where a group can put pressure on a country. So in Thailand, years ago, I remember hearing about the fishing industry there as well. And this organization that we support started working with Walmart and said, hey, listen, are you aware that a lot of the fish comes from Thailand, where there are children who are enslaved working these boats? And is that a story you want to be publicized, that you're getting your fish using
Right.
slave labor? So then, this organization and Walmart go to Thailand, to the government, and say, listen, we're just not going to buy fish anymore from you if this happens.
Yeah.
And so then Thailand has a financial and an economic reason now to change their laws and to enforce the laws that they have already, to say, look, we're not going to use slave labor, and we're going to have to do this the right way, because they're going to lose money for their, for their country if they don't. And so using that sort of pressure ends up changing a lot of systems, and in the process stops slavery.
Well, I think when we think about slavery and human trafficking, we think as Americans that this is happening in third world countries, and we forget and maybe don't know that it's actually happening right here in our backyard as well. Do any of the companies or organizations that you're involved with fight domestic human trafficking?
Yeah, we sure do. And I think there's some movies that have come out recently that really depict one side of human trafficking. I think a lot of people have this idea of taken in their mind, someone's actually taken. But especially here locally, it's the way that we can fight it is through education. So there's a couple different groups that we support that help educate, in particular, young, vulnerable, kind of junior high age, in particular girls, what to look for.
Mm-hmm.
What are signs that there's someone who is acting like they're going to take care of them and be someone that they can trust, that's going to end up, basically tricking that young girl to then becoming, a slave and working and being trafficked. And, they'll soon be addicted to drugs. Then because they're addicted to the drugs and this person is supplying them with drugs, it becomes very hard for them to leave that lifestyle. So really educating people in the schools is a big part of today of how we fight here in America. So people know what to look for, because the system, as I have learned, it's very repeatable. There are people who are training others on, look, here's how you look for kids who are vulnerable. Here's what you say to those kids to get them to trust you. And then over time, over the course of several months of just seeing them out on the street and saying hello, and, here's some of this for free. There you go. Just they become the good person. and
Yeah.
then they're able to, get these kids in their system. So fighting it really through education is probably the biggest thing that we're doing right now.
Well, I think if I'm someone it's in sales or business and I have lost either passion or excitement around what I'm doing. Maybe I've been doing it for a while. We see this in sales all the time. Obviously, I'm a sales trainer, so getting someone who feels comfortable in their situation to sell more and have a reason to is something I'm very well aware of. But sometimes we get comfortable because we are making enough money to do what we want to do, and now it's time to take a step back and just kind of chill and not push ourselves. Well, there's a lot that goes into that line of thinking in itself. But if you're there, start thinking about the purpose of your money more so than just serving yourself. And we've talked on the podcast before about having bad days and how selfish typically you're being if you're just having a bad day. Because in most cases, and not in all cases, but in most cases, I think if we're having a bad day, it's over something like someone didn't call me back or someone said someone mean, someone cut me off in traffic. And then we get stuck in our line of thinking like, poor me, poor me. But if you apply that same thing to money, and if you're in sales or maybe if you're a realtor and you're good with doing 5, 6, 7 million a year because that provides the lifestyle that you want, and there's really no reason to go for it past that. I would challenge that thinking to say, if you are not making enough money to save, provide your family with a lifestyle and put money away for the future, and then on top of it, that last level, that final level is giving it away to causes that you feel passionate about. I would challenge you to look into human trafficking and see if that doesn't break your heart a little bit to maybe sell one more house, make another dollar so that you can give it away to someone who needs it probably more than you do. And I want to say that in all compassion and love, because I've been in places where I've been that guy who's just totally comfortable and I've earned this break. I've earned this easy year. But I think we as humans, and I think you would agree with this, Duane, and maybe you have a better take on this, but I think we as humans desire more. I think we want more. I think we want to give more. I think there's a void out there that another vacation won't fill. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I can't say it any better. There's the point where we all want to get to the point where we can provide for our needs. All right. We want to be able to, if you've got children, you want them to be able to go on vacation and do those things. But once you get to a certain level, as you mentioned, you've sold so many houses, you're doing great, the needs are met, taken care of. There does need to be a purpose greater than that. And certainly, I think there's, like you said, there's so many out there. For us, I've seen tremendous value in this fighting against human trafficking. It's just some of the stories that we've heard and some of the lives that have been changed for the better. It gives you that purpose to continue to work. Our organization has grown, and it's still today, one of the things that drives me and pushes me is I love what we do with some of the money and where some of those resources go. And it's just, it's for people that I'll never meet. People in our organization are working each day. We got a lot of people who are excited about it as well. They're never going to meet these people, but to know that their lives are in a much better place because of it, that provides a lot of purpose, like you mentioned, that we all desire.
What are your favorite organizations, or that's a bad way to put it, but what are some organizations you've decided to put your money and faith into that if I'm listening to this and I feel inclined to give or get involved, where should I go? Great.
Well, I think, again, I don't have, I don't know that we've done a perfect job in our selection, but we've been doing this now for about 10 years. And so I feel very confident in these organizations, but it's, International Justice Mission, Love Justice, Atlas Free. Those are probably the three that we support with the highest level, highest commitment at this point. And then there's some other local ones, smaller ones, and regional ones that we're involved with. But I know you've got listeners all over, and those three do work on a national level, international level, and they're pretty easy for people to get involved with.
We've covered a lot of things from success, your favorite HGTV shows, and where you give your extra money. I appreciate you coming on the show. It's you're fun. You're fun to listen to, and you think about things. You're very thoughtful. You read a lot. Any challenges or hope you see for the future? Now, I will tell you that at the taping of this podcast, we're at an interesting time in real estate. The interest rates, as you know, are affecting the housing market, politics, everything that goes into it. I would say that for the last 10 years, we've been fat and happy. And the last couple, it's just been weird. We're going to see a thinning of the herd. As an outside person from watching this, but being in business as long as you have and seeing sales go up and down, what is your hope for the future in this American economy? What are you feeling?
I'll tell you, I just sent a message out to, and I'll read the text. Hopefully she won't mind, but I've got a friend, Michelle Guerrero, who's a realtor here in Wilmington, North Carolina, where I live. And she was one of the first advertisers that started working with N2. And so I have an affinity for those people who take a chance on you in the beginning, right? As you got your business started, I'm sure they were, the first couple sales, and those people who saw you, believed in you, and believed in what you're doing and the vision. There is something special about that. So I texted this lady, Michelle, recently. I said, hey, she is in a little bit south of where I live now. So I just asked her, listen, you were with me a long time ago, and you were the only realtor at state advertising in 2008 and 2009. All my other realtors, they disappeared. I'm just curious, because I never asked this question. How did your brand do coming out of that? Because I've heard the studies that advertising in a down market, when your competition stops advertising, stops marketing, that those who continue to market and advertise come out of that recession even stronger with greater market share. And so I say, hey, look, what was your experience? Was it good? And she said, I do believe continuing to advertise in a down market had a positive effect during the downturn, definitely after. Things slow, but they don't stop. And you want as much market share as possible when it's slow, and to make the most of the market as quickly as possible when it turns. Advertising then too made a significant difference in my career. We were just talking about these are certain communities you wanted to be a part of. Did you see a difference?
Yeah.
By the way, that's not a plug for N2 per se, but just in marketing and in advertising, I think, as you mentioned, what's our hope for the future? It's a challenging time right now, but there are opportunities. And the business people who look for the opportunities and look for what good can come from this, that, you look back, there are always cycles.
Yep.
We've had 10 different, since the Great Depression, 10 different recessions, depressions. So the economy does well, and then there's a bit of a give back, and then it does well, and then a bit of a give back, and does well, and a give back. And so for the people who are listening to this podcast who want to be an enduring business and be here and know they're going to be here, having that long-term approach and going, look, this will pass like the others have as well. How long? I don't know. It might be a few months, it might be a year or two, it could be a couple of years. But it will pass, and there are opportunities. And it's really that mindset. So I'm still optimistic. I'm still very bullish on the American economy and the people here. I think for those who are looking for opportunities, they will find them. Certainly it will be more challenging. It will be different. Like you said, it's been very easy for a lot of years. Okay, well, that seems to be going away. It's not as easy anymore. But things won't stop and go away.
Well said, Duane. I think of our very first cover ever, Mr. Dick Richwine, who was our first podcast guest as well.
I heard that one. Yeah, I heard it.
He said it great. He said, this is one of my favorite quotes. There's never a bad time to be in real estate for a good realtor. And I think your real estate friend, and what you just said kind of echo that. Thanks for being on the show, Duane. Thoughtful, great conversation as always. Can't wait to have you back.
I appreciate to be here, Remington. Good to see you.
This has been the Real Producers Podcast. If we are not in your market, you can bring it to your market, realproducersmag.com. We'll see you next time.